Okay, I'm just looking at this one here, and I'm not going to mention the learner's name because we've already done it and 2 have already won their prizes. But this one says, name the system of membranes that surrounds the brain. Now, there are 3 membranes that surround the brain, and have a look here. Let's just quickly put this in. Okay, you've got the membrane that sits right against the cerebrum. In other words, right against that grey matter. That's layer number 1. And then you get number 2. And then you get number, in fact, let's do it a different color. Then you get number 2. And then you get number 1. So that's layer number, let's do it this way. That's layer number 1 from the outside. And then here is the bone of the skull. Okay, this pen is doing its own thing now. Okay, so there's 1, and then this one is going to be 2, and then this one is 3. Okay, so, yay. All right, so this first layer is on the outside, and being on the outside, we say that it is durable. So it is the dura mater. Okay, that's an A. My pen is just doing funny things at the moment. Okay, so that's the dura mater. Think of dura. If I paint my house, I want to use durable paint because it's on the outside. So you've got the skull, then you have the dura mater. Your next layer is here, and between this second layer and your third layer is a cavity. And that cavity is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. All right. Now, the second layer is a little bit more difficult because it sounds like you got arachnophobia. You're scared of spiders. It is called the arachnoid. Arachnoid. That's your second layer. And then between your second layer and your third layer, in between there, that is when you have your cerebrospinal, that looks like a P, should be fluid. All right, and then your third layer is the closest to the cerebrum. This is your pia mater. So P-I-A, and think of pia as in, well, I always used to say pea brain. So your pia mater, right around the cerebrum, and then you have the arachnoid, and between the pia mater and the arachnoid is the cerebral spinal fluid, and then you have the dura mater. But there's a special name for all 3 together, and all 3 membranes together are called, I'm going to write it here, it's called the meninges. And if you think about meninges, if you have meningitis, it means that you have an inflammation of those membranes. Okay, and meningitis can leave you quite ill as well. All right, so meninges, they are the meninges, those are the membranes around the brain, and also you'll find those same membranes in the spinal cord. Okay, let's look at, I just want to get a clean sheet here. Okay, our next question. Okay, so that was about the, and this one has the center for interpreting taste. It's going to be cerebrum. Because remember, cerebrum does all your senses, regulates heart rate. What regulates the heart rate? It is the medulla oblongata. What regulates the breathing rate? The medulla oblongata. Heart rate, medulla oblongata. Breathing rate, medulla oblongata. Please, people, you've got to remember that. Hypothalamus, hypothalamus regulates your metabolism and the rate at which everything works. Okay, then is responsible for motor coordination, cerebellum. Always the cerebellum. Balance, equilibrium, muscle tone. So your coordination of muscles moving to be able to walk is coordination. All of that is the cerebellum. Okay, done. Right, now who have we got? Ha! We've got KG. KG, I'm sure you sent a question in last week as well. Are you one of our little faves? So KG Myelin, here we go. You've got the diagram below represents the structure of a neuron. Okay, now remember we've got three types of neurons. We've got multipolar or motor neurons. Why? Because they are motor neurons, they make us motor along. Okay, motor means to move. Okay, so motor neurons are for movement. And if we think, and they're multipolar, they got to get information from everywhere. So they're multipolar motor neurons. Then we have sensory neurons. Well, they're a little bit delicate because they are unipolar. They're not multipolar, unipolar, one little pole. Why? Because they don't have to do anything. Think about this. You're sitting on the couch. This happened last night to me. So I think that's why it's come to my head. You're sitting on the couch. And sitting next to you is your little dog. Okay? In my case, it's my mini Dashi. And Bobby Brown is sitting there and he's looking at me. And the next thing, there is the worst gas that comes out of his little bottom that you could possibly imagine. I promise you, they could take that gas fume and use it as a biological weapon. I promise you, I think that the hairs in my nose actually shriveled up and disappeared into nothing. I couldn't believe that smell came from this tiny little body. Well, I smelt it, and then I flew off that couch. I grabbed a cushion, and I was waving this cushion around so that I could clear the air because, my goodness, it was like a sulfur cloud. It just sat there. Now, look at what happened. My sensory neurons, which are unipolar, while I was sitting calmly watching TV, picked up in my nose, my olfactory cells picked up, whoa, that smells terrible. And what happens? My brain registered that and it says, whoa. I then turned my head and I looked at him. So that's multipolar, okay? And then I motored off the couch, which is multipolar neuron. So your multipolar motor neurons, you use to move, to react, to respond. Whereas your sensory neurons are chilled. They only have unipolar, one pole, because they just simply relay the message to you, to your brain, and say, here's a terrible smell. What are you going to do about it? And then you think, and your brain then reacts. Okay, so that's how to remember it. Multipolar motor neurons, unipolar sensory neurons. They enter the whole sense stimulus process. Very chilled. You can almost imagine your sensory neurons have a bit of incense somewhere. Okay, and then you have your connector neurons, and they come into play when we look at the reflex arc and the reflex actions that result. Right, because they connect, it's like an on-ramp and an off-ramp on a highway. Your motor neurons, at least your sensory unipolar neurons, are taking messages to the central nervous system, so to the spinal cord and the brain. And your motor neurons are traveling in the opposite direction. They're taking impulses from the brain and the spinal cord to your muscles, to get your muscles to react. But you've got to get on-ramps and off-ramps. And the on-ramps and off-ramps along the way are your connector neurons. Right, so here we go. Now I have to draw this. You must be able to draw these as well. All right, so we're going to go with our multipolar neuron. See? And I actually think I need to get myself an art teacher. Okay, and then it goes there. Just Go. And then this will go like that, little bulbs, little knobs. Okay, and now, sitting all the way along here, we have little cells. And these little cells I'm just going to do this much easier, quicker. We don't have all day. Jump, 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 jump. Okay. Right, labels. This is A. Okay. This, B. This is E. This is F. I just want to do this one again. Looks messy. Let's do it like this. Okay, C is that, and D is that. Okay, right. So what are we looking at? We are looking at here a multipolar neuron. First thing you do when you get a diagram in an exam is you label it. All right, quickly. It's not fair, just quickly. Da, 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 da. You can even abbreviate the words, but I need for you to do that. Why? Because it helps, and this is exam technique, all right? It helps your brain to almost pull out the file. If you can imagine, it's your brain is walking up, your little secretary there, your PA is walking up and pulling open the file, all right, that contains the nervous system information. All right, so that you can now think, okay, what am I doing? I'm doing the nervous system. All right, that's that, A, B, C, D. So let's do our labels. First label that we're going to be looking at here. So A is going to be a dendrite. All right, and what they could have done is they could have said A, and this one is also A, and that one there is also A. So why? Because this is they dendrites actually, because it is a multipolar neuron. All right, it's multipolar. There's a pole, and 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 there's one. So this one's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 poles. Okay, it's multipolar. All right, that's number one. Then B is the nucleus. And will that nucleus be diploid or will that nucleus be haploid? Think about it. It's part of a somatic cell, so therefore it will be diploid. If it was a gamete, then it would during meiosis, at the end of meiosis, it would be haploid. Haploid cells are only there, or haploid gametes are only there for sexual reproduction to take place. All right, so everything else is going to be diploid. Alrighty, then, so it wasn't really a trick question, but maybe it is a trick question. Okay, then C is the axon. Okay, and then D is, I'm trying to remember, see, I don't know if they want the membrane or if they want the cell. So the membrane is called the myelin sheath. And the myelin sheath protects and covers the axon. It also helps to speed up and accelerate the impulse as the impulse travels along the axon. Okay, so your myelinated neurons are neurons that can also repair themselves. Whereas if they are unmyelated, like in the brain, they can't repair themselves. That is why if you destroy brain cells, that's it, they're gone. They cannot be sorted. All right, so you have your myelin sheath, and this little cell is a Schwann cell, and that would be the Schwann cell nucleus. So I'm not sure what it is that they wanted there. And then E will be the cell body. And F, well, if we look at F, I'm trying to think, what on earth would F be? Oh, it would just be simply cytoplasm, I suppose. Cytoplasm. And inside that cytoplasm, you'll have little bodies called Nissl bodies, which is NSSIL, so Nissl bodies. And the Nissl bodies are also there to provide a process within the cell body of the multipolar neuron. What else are we missing here? Oh, these little structures here. So this here would be what we call the terminal end plate, okay? And this terminal end plate will always end on an effector. And what is an effector? An effector would be a muscle or a gland. So it's whatever is going to respond to the way the brain, or what the brain wants it to do. Okay, because remember, these are multipolar neurons. They move away from the brain. So what I'm going to show you here, let's do another color. We say this is the direction of the impulse. Okay, impulse direction is from the cell body towards the terminal end plate. Okay, always from the cell body here all the way to the terminal end plate. Terminal end plate or terminal plate, depends on which textbook you're using. All right, now let's look at our quizzes. Question says, name the type of neuron in the diagram above. Come, let's just write these answers out nicely. So number 1, type of neuron, it is a motor neuron. Okay, and you could also have said multipolar neuron. Geez, you want to really get technical, you could also call it the efferent neuron, because it's moving towards an effector. Okay, so motor neuron, multipolar neuron, effector neuron, all the same. Okay, then question, but go with motor neuron. It's much easier and you can't mess up with that. Okay, identify parts B, F, and A. So part B, I'm not going to write this out, but part B is the nucleus, part F is the cytoplasm, and part A are the dendrites. Okay, so there we go. And then question sort of B, F, A. And then question 3 is give the letter and name of the part. Now people listen, in an exam, if they say give the letter, only give the letter. Because if you give the name and not the letter, you get naught. All right. So, and if they ask you to give the name and you only give the letter, it's naught. But if they ask you to give both, please do. All right, and in the order they say, so the letter and then the name. Transmits impulses away from the cell body. Well, it's going to be the axon. I mean, what else? Look here. What transmits the impulses away? I don't like, wow, there. So what is that? The axon was, what label? Was C. Okay, so 3A is transmits impulses away, so it's going to be C, which is the axon. Okay, and then B is insulates and speeds up the transmission of the impulses. Well, I told you that was done by the Schwann cells and this myelin sheath that sits around. Okay, so it's the myelin sheath That is so amazing. And we'll do that. So let's just zip this up a little bit. All right, so is D, and that is going to be the myelin sheath. And remember that the myelin sheath, because it insulates, it means that that impulse doesn't get messed around. The impulse can just focus on moving forward, and it is insulated. So it just accelerates the speed at which it moves. All right, and then question 4, name the condition caused by the progressive deterioration of D. So that would be the progressive deterioration of the myelin sheath, and that disease is called multiple, means lots, on lots of, because it's a motor neuron, multipolar neuron. So remember it like that. Multiple sclerosis. Okay, and remember multiple sclerosis because very often they'll ask a question on multiple sclerosis when you do genetics. So they'll say, here's a cross. This is multiple sclerosis and a genetic disease that's passed down as a recessive gene, blah, 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 blah in the question.